ready? I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Thursday, June 4th, Walton County Design Review Board meeting. This body requires 4 board members, one of which is a design review board professional, to conduct its business. We do have 4 members present. Thus, it will require unanimous 4 votes to pass. Each of you can, you have the option to continue your project if you'd like. Yeah. Oh, okay. Kelly, yes, as as vice chair, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yes, I would like to pass the chair responsibilities over to Tanner today for the meeting, since he is in person in the boardroom and I am calling in remote. We thought that would be an easier method to let him chair the meeting tonight.
Okay. All right, our first item is for the board members to, have you reviewed the minutes from the May 7th, 2020 meeting?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Motion second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Minutes are approved. Tim, do you have any announcements for us?
No, sir, no announcements.
Okay.
I've got a question, Tanner.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Lee, go ahead.
This is Lee. Since most of us are remote, should we state our names if we're making motions in seconds just to make it easier for minute taking, or is that necessary?
Well, it's okay. I think
Okay.
we're good.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 2, the Granite Gallery building sign. Tim?
Yes, thank you. Tim Brown with Planning and Development. This is a scenic corridor sign application requesting approval of a building sign measuring 2 feet by 27 feet for a total of 54 square feet on 1.48 acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center. It's located at 12340 US Highway 98 West. It is in compliance with the scenic corridor requirements, and I will answer any questions the board may have.
Do you have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
We have no questions. Do we have any public comment? Would any of the members like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion has been made to approve and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, the Ascension Sacred Heart Trustmark building sign.
Thank you. This is a scenic corridor sign application requesting approval of a building sign measuring 166.9375 inches by 29.3125 inches for a total of 33.98 square feet on 1.93 acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center. It's located at 7700 US Highway 98 West. This is on the corner of Mac Bayou Road and 98, and all they're doing in this particular instance is switching out the sign. It currently says Sacred Heart Foundation. Now it's going to say Ascension Sacred Heart Foundation. It is in compliance with the scenic corridor requirements, and I'll entertain any questions the board may have.
I have a question, Tim. Is this actually 2 signs that are changing out, one on each side of the building, or is it just the one?
They want to do both, but under the current code, the western sign is non-conforming. So I don't know if they're going to come back for a deviation or not, but the only way they can get that sign approved is by deviation.
Okay. I have another question. In some places in the, let me make sure yep. In one place, the sign looks like the foundation part of the sign is in a different font than Ascension Sacred Heart. Is that true or not? In one place it's the same, and then in another place it's different.
I'm not sure I understand the question. I mean, it's different than the existing sign. You know, if you look at the existing sign and the proposed sign, they are in a different font.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the word foundation appears to be in a different font than the words Ascension Sacred Heart.
Oh.
On one page, the E01 sign recommendation page, and then on the E02 sign recommendation page, it's all in the same font.
Yeah, I don't believe anyone's here, but you're here. That's probably just an error, right?
No, sir, it is actually a different font. No, come on up, sir. The applicant is coming forward. Please, sir, please state your name.
David Cooperthwaite,
Can you spell that, please? Yeah.
Couperthwaite.
Thank you, David.
The word foundation is a different font. It's due to their corporate branding logo.
The two exhibits, though, have a different font, even between the two pages, the E01 and the E02. Which font is correct?
E01
Between
is
those
the
two.
correct.
Okay, I do this all the time. I'm gonna have to defer to our design professionals. I just think that it looks better on the one where it's the same font, and because the Ascension Sacred Heart Foundation is all the name of the foundation, and it also seems that the sign itself would look much better if foundation weren't by itself down on that second line. It's just, the sign just looks a little, the new part of the sign just looks a little discombobulated to me, with the logo kind of higher than the words of the sign. I realize it's in line with Ascension Sacred Heart, but that foundation being kind of stuck down there just looks weird. It's not a code issue, it's just an aesthetic issue.
I agree with you, Lee. It is a little awkward. The previous sign was very balanced, and so this sign, it just the contrast, I think, is a little strange. And I don't know if that's because of the logo piece or not. So the logoed piece, the Ascension Sacred Heart Foundation, this is exactly as their logo appears, on the separate line like that, and the spacing with their logo. This is their branded.
Yes, that is
This is
correct.
how it appears on all their branded marketing.
That is correct. It's actually a percentage ratios that they require everything to go by, and anything underneath that's not Ascension Sacred Heart has to be a block style font.
Kelly, Lourdes, Lee, do you have any additional questions or comments or thoughts?
I've made mine, so.
I think it's been covered.
Any additional public comment? All right, being none, would the board like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I don't love the sign at all, but I'll second it. It's
Okay.
for discussion, I guess.
Well, it is facing Mac Bayou Road, so it's not facing Highway 98, if that makes any difference.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
I would just, I mean, I do prefer the proportions of the previous sign, but I understand with this being their branded logo, and they're trying to meet a certain square footage, to stay compliant and stay within the space on the building. So it's not my first choice, but I understand the positioning and I understand why the proportions of the sign are as they are.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Motion passes unanimously. Next agenda item is item number 4, the Seacrest Dental Monument sign.
This is a scenic quarter sign application requesting a reconsideration of placing the previously approved monument sign on the north side of the entrance drive on 1.72 acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of village mixed use. Project's located at 24696 US Highway 331 South. As you may or may not recall, this sign was approved at the March meeting with a condition that it be located on the north side of the drive aisle. Well, I went out there and looked at it. There's a tree there, and if they place the sign there, it will be partially obscured as you're going south, and of course, it's one way going south. So they provided the same drawing as they did previously, either putting it on the south side of the drive aisle, drive entrance, or in the middle of the building. Either one would have clear visibility from 331, but it will be partially obscured by that tree if they put it on the north side of the drive aisle. So with that, I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Tim, I'm going to ask the same questions I asked at the March meeting. The site plan for this is incredibly lacking. It doesn't have any context for us to understand where the sign is going to go on the south side of that entrance drive. The current sign that they said it's going to replace, it sits catty-cornered, not perpendicular to the road. The site conditions are different than what's demonstrated in the drawing. There's palm trees, immediately behind, where their current catty-cornered construction sign exists. So is this representative of that? Is that gonna do any damage to those trees? Are they gonna have to be moved? Is the sign gonna fit? You know, all things that we can't tell by this site plan. And so I cannot approve anything on the south side of that entrance drive, based on the information provided. I don't have a problem with option B, where it's located. But I don't think we have enough information to approve the option A location. I don't personally.
I agree with you. You know, option A is a lot crowdier, and, I think option B it would have more visibility coming down the road on 393.
Is the applicant present?
My understanding is either option is acceptable to them, so whether it's A or B, they're good with either one.
So Tim, do we have what we approved last time would be an option C that would be just to the north of the drive there?
Well, that's what the board, it wasn't an option presented by the applicant, but that was the condition the board made. And the other issue
Right.
there, obviously can't tell that from the site plan either, but there's not a lot of room between the right-of-way and the north part of that landscape buffer. So that's the other issue, is he's got to put the sign at the northern part of that area because the right-of-way is so close, so that tree is right there. And of course, if you go with option B in the middle of the building, there's not going to be a tree there to block visibility.
Tim, is that a new tree or is that a existing old tree that's been there? I can't read the, you know,
It
looks
appears
like
to be a
they're all new trees.
appears to be a new tree that was planted with the buffer, with the landscape buffer.
Yeah.
It's one of the
They could
understory
move
trees,
it.
because they have overhead power lines there, so it's an understory tree.
What?
So, sorry.
What did you say, Tim? I couldn't hear you.
It's an understory tree. They have overhead power lines, so there's no canopy trees there, but still, it will partially obscure the sign.
So Tim, did I understand you correctly to say they are okay with either A or B?
Yes.
So does anyone on the board have an issue with B?
No, I have no issue with B.
I don't have a problem with that. It would be clearly, you know, very visible. That's fine.
I'm okay with that as well.
Okay. Motion to approve on location B?
Do we have any,
Second.
do we have any public comments? Being none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Being none, motion carries unanimously. Move on to agenda item number 5, the Hancock Whitney Bank sign deviation.
Thank you. This is a scenic corridor sign application requesting approval for a deviation for an additional building sign and a deviation for sign height from 3 feet to 6 feet on 3 acres with the future land use of mixed use and a zoning of village mixed use. It's located on the north side of Highway 98 West, east of South Church Street, and west of 393, County Road 393. As you may or may not recall, I believe this was approved at the February meeting. They're building this new building in the shops at 393, and they want, at that time, they wanted an additional sign on the west side, which is where the drive-through is located. At that time, they didn't apply for a deviation, so now they are applying for a deviation for this second building sign. And as you can see from the drawing, it's going to be to the right of the previously approved building sign. So it is in compliance I mean, it's a deviation, so it's up to the board. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
The deviation, Tim, for clarification, that is for the addition of a second sign, is that correct?
And the heights, from 3 feet tall to 6 feet tall.
Oh,
Oh, so it's a size deviation, it's not the number of signs.
Right. Well,
Both.
yes, one is an additional sign, because they can only have one. They're allowed one sign, so there's a deviation to allow an additional building sign, and then a deviation for height, because the sign is 6 by 6, it's 36 square feet, but the code allows for 3 feet in height.
I see,
Now, is
okay.
that
So
the-
it is two separate deviations.
Yes, and it should be 2 separate votes, even though it's one application, it should be 2 separate votes.
and Tim, the one is like, on the elevation rendering, there's the one, the Hancock Whitney sign that is above on the tower piece. And then the added sign is the one that's next to that.
Actually, no, I got them backwards.
Vice versa.
The one to the right was the one that was previously approved. The one on the tower to the left is the proposal tonight.
Mhm.
I got them backwards.
And that's the one that you want to make 6 foot tall.
Yes, they want it to be 6 feet by 6 feet.
The round one.
Yes, the
Yeah,
round
that's
one.
6 feet diameter.
Yes.
So the one to the right that's more linear is with the words written out Hancock Whitney is the one we approved in February.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
And the monument sign is the round one too, right? Their monument sign.
I don't believe they're on the monument sign. There is a monument sign on this side of the project, but I don't believe Hancock Whitney will be on that monument sign.
Can we confirm that the scale is correct? Because I'm having a hard time understanding that the new sign on the rendering is 6 feet. When you look at it in relation to some of the other features, it just feels like it's not actually 6 feet diameter. Looking at it in proportion to some of the other measurements that are on the drawing and looking at it in proportion to the doorway. Is it just me? Lourdes, do you see any kind of proportion issues?
Well, that's if the doors are 3 foot each. If you take that, it's about right, I think.
It feels right.
Yeah, because the doors have 2 frames around, again, two frames that make it a lot wider.
Okay.
So, so only the interior doors would be, if they're 3 feet and 3 feet, and it's close.
Is the applicant present?
To me, in my eye.
Yeah, I'm trying to scale it off based off of the measurements, that are shown at 3 foot 4 inches, or the measurements
Kelly,
just above it, a little over 2 feet.
Kelly, the applicant is present. Sir, please state your name.
I'm Tommy Duncan.
Thank you. Can you help us, the
Yes,
board,
sir.
with questions about the scale of the drawings?
Yes, sir. The sign is to scale. If you, when you.
On the rendering.
Yes, on the rendering.
Thank
So, and the reason that we need
Yeah.
reason we need the 6 foot, if you look at the aesthetics of the big wall there, if you just put a 3 foot one there, it just wouldn't look correct. And for the aesthetics of the wall, this looks a whole lot better. The reason we came back and asked for this additional sign, we started off with that. These are just little non-illuminated letters that we put up originally, but with the distance from the road to the building and where that is kind of recessed back in there, you don't see it very well. And this sets the building off, makes it look better. And they actually have this on all their buildings.
Just,
No,
I
I do agree. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Lourdes. I'm sorry.
no, I was just
I
gonna
was just
say
gonna say that,
Lourdes, go ahead, Lourdes.
Okay. I just cheated and put I took the height of the diameter of the sign and then put it against the doors, and it's to scale.
Okay.
Okay,
And-
so,
I was just gonna say that when this came originally, I understood why the sign was being placed over the door, but to me, it felt like we were missing an opportunity for the signage to be on, the tower portion of the architecture. So I think that it makes, sense to have it, the logo and the sign there. But,
are you
yeah, it
leery
does
of the size?
feel okay. Maybe not so much the size, although 6 feet is a very large sign. It looks proportional in the scale here, and that, to me, feels like that's 2 very large signs for the one building. Although the scale feels nice on the rendering, it just kind of seemed very large. Because that is a very, definitely will be a noticeable sign.
So I just want to make a few comments based on what you've said. First of all, this is a part of a strip center, if I'm understanding and remembering correctly. So we'll have, we have a lot of centers out there, and this is sort of bringing back the issue of the multi-bay tenant thing, and how if a tenant in a center has more than one bay, most of the time, except for a couple of things that have slipped through the cracks, they don't get more signs. So you're going to have if you're just looking at signs per building portion of the building facade, right? You're going to have some that, if that's the only consideration, might seem a little out of balance. So, and that's just a fairness issue, in my opinion, of, everybody gets the same number of signs unless there's some kind of a hardship or unmanageable thing about the building. We've had those as well, where there were conditions of an older building that made sticking to our sign guidelines difficult, if not impossible in some cases. So, about that, my feeling is one or the other. I get that there's sort of this facade there that is empty if we just keep it the way it is. But you could say that about the facade to the opposite side of the existing sign as well. So then do we put 3 Hancock Whitney signs there, going by that logic? I know that tower piece is more prominent, I get that, but I'm just saying at some point, where does that stop? And the other thing I wanted to mention is the previous Hancock Whitney location, we had the same issue, and a similar issue, and there was a tower with a facade of a certain size there, and they did request, I believe it may have even been a 6-foot diameter sign, and we ended up approving a deviation, but to a much lesser degree in size. And when the sign went on the building, it did not look too small at all, in my opinion. So I struggle with this. I get the logic, but again, when we look at consistency and fairness, we've probably got some other centers out there that have some blank facades that other companies would love to, put another sign or their logo or a larger version of it or whatever on there. And so I struggle with the fairness of it. And the third thing I'll say is that I have seen other Hancock Whitney branches, as well as a bigger, somewhat of a headquarters or a big office building over in Panama City, where they don't have this white ring around with the words Hancock Whitney. They have something more like what the signage is that we've already approved, the sign is that we've already approved, with the blue logo, portion of the logo, and then Hancock Whitney to the side. I've seen that in Fort Walton Beach. I've seen it in Panama City as well. So, I really struggle with this a lot. I wouldn't have a hard time with the Hancock Whitney full logo and a smaller version of it on that tower if it were the only sign there. And then you'd have two blank bays next to them, which we have that. We have that in other centers where there are blank bays. So I'm
That was
really
the discussion
struggling.
that we had last time.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say that this is the kind of issue when you have a deviation and you want to make your point. It's always best to draw the full context of where it's going to be, so that we can get a picture of what Lee is talking about. Because if the design of this strip, and I can't remember, they're gonna have other towers. Her point, and they wouldn't have the Hancock Whitney sign on them. So it would give us a little bit more of an idea of what exactly it's going to go if we can see the whole picture. Because this just shows the one tower, and yeah, the sign looks good, but it's not there. It wouldn't look as good if you saw all the other, if there were 3 other towers in the complex, or if there was another tower in the complex and it didn't have a sign. And then if you saw that, then the sign that's there above the door would become appropriate, and you wouldn't need to embellish the tower more so. And sometimes that's it helps for us to make a decision. I tend to go with Lee, because we get it, you give somebody an extra sign, and everybody else is going to want an extra sign. And if there's another tower in this complex, then it would look awkward for one to have a sign and for the other one not to have one. So I'm assuming that there is another tower in this complex.
Tim, can you remember the size of the Italian restaurant sign?
I can't remember.
Where they had a logo,
But
they had a sign and a logo, I think, or font below it that was.
It was within the 54 square feet
Okay.
allowed. I don't remember the exact size, but it wasn't a deviation, so it was limited to 54 square feet.
Okay, because I think that's one of the other towers that they're referencing in the strip center.
Yeah, I think it's a building to the right of this, to the east of this.
Yeah.
One of the
Yes.
things I heard him asking about before I came up was about a monument sign. We do not have a monument sign, and that's another reason that we did need this on the building for visibility. And also, if you've been out here, there's a road that goes between this building and the next building. So this is actually a freestanding building.
Correct, yeah, freestanding single tenant.
Yes, sir.
We get that. And I think what Lourdes' her point was, she would like to see the entire site plan to see how it would all. Yeah, but we don't have that in front of us today. I understand.
Or in an elevation of the entire center.
just the length of it, so that you can get a picture of the entire center, not just the individual store front. Because then if there's a sign on the other one, if you can put the sign there, then you can start looking at the scale of it too.
No, I absolutely agree with the comments that Lee and Lourdes both have made. You know, I remember this discussion because I was a little disappointed that the signage wasn't going on the tower with the original sign in the previous discussion, just because I felt like that would have been a more prominent position for it. I totally understood the logic about it being on the bay above the door, but yeah, it does feel because the proposed sign is internally illuminated. Is that correct? So
Yes.
it'll be very, very visible. So I do wonder how that impacts the full scale of the development.
Yeah.
And that is a very large.
The thing is that, I mean, architecturally, it's like, okay, the sign would be best there and have the entry in the tower, because the tower creates a really good entry, but the entry's on the side, so, that complicates things in terms of the look.
So, question for the board, would an elevation of the entire strip center help with the decision of whether or not to approve a second sign and the size deviation itself?
Well, well, for me, I don't know that it would. I do get the point, and I would love to see the full picture. But I'm looking at this, and in this case, it looks awkward, honestly, to me. It looks like why are there two signs, very different in nature, right next to each other on the same bank building, or any building? It looks like the two signs were not thought of or conceptualized at the same time together, which apparently they weren't. It's two very different thought processes and visuals, and I just and again, just from a fairness standpoint, it's two signs right next to each other for the same business. So I think it would help, but I don't know that it would make me more likely.
Well, what it does is that it makes it actually look like, there were two different businesses next to each other and they happen to have the same name.
Mhm.
But
That's true, and I really don't think you're going to have a problem with visibility the way the sign sits today that was already approved. That's a highly visible center, and like I said earlier, I would go more for a scaled down version of the white around the logo on the one tower without the other one next to it than I would the two signs. And I know we can't do that because we've already approved the other sign. I'm just talking conceptually.
well, that's up to whether they would be willing to do that. They would just take the other sign down and have their main sign in the tower.
Yeah, we just can't require it, I don't think.
No, we can't require it. It would just be up to them.
Does the
Yeah.
board have any additional questions for the applicant?
I don't think so.
You could make that a condition of the approval. You have the authority to require that.
Well, Tim, what we would have the authority to do is that to say that, okay, one sign would be allowed, only one sign. So if you want the sign on the tower, you would have to take away the other sign. And that we could request, right?
Yes, you can make that a condition of the approval.
And then
Yeah.
it would be their choice.
Right.
Are you saying that you would approve the 6 foot on the tower just like we have it if they agree to take the non-illuminated letters down?
I would make it about, I would make a 5'6" diameter rather than a 6 foot.
Or what size?
I would even go smaller, but it would have to come down in size.
Well,
For me.
I think that if it were any smaller, it would get lost in the tower. And I don't know whether, how, you know, I mean, my eye says that it would be too small, even though it's a large, it's just that facade of that face or that wall of the tower is large. So,
So just so there's some clarity here, are we leaning towards denial of two signs, but potentially approving the size deviation?
Yeah, I think in general,
would
it's
feel more
probably a
comfortable with
little
that,
more
yeah.
complicated than that, but,
Mm.
we would have to, I'm thinking about how we would do it. We would have to say we would approve the sign that's being proposed today at a smaller diameter on the condition that the other sign would be removed. Is that right?
exactly,
And they don't have to, they can stick with what's there today.
right.
How much smaller?
Well, I think, Lourdes, were you okay with the 6 feet in diameter? So it was just Lee that had the issue with the 6 feet? Because, I mean, proportionally, I really don't have an issue with the way that's presented. If we're sure that that's the scale and that is demonstrating a 6-foot sign, it doesn't give me a terrible reaction if it's the only sign
Yeah,
on the building.
I think the
Um,
6 foot looks fine, and I would want to see it to scale if it's any smaller before deciding that 6 foot is not okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't agree. I don't know that I'm willing to vote it down because of that, but, you know, like I said before, I wish, Tim, we had the measurement of the one on the old building, because if I'm not mistaken, this tower looks similar in size to that old one. You compare it to it's always challenging looking at renderings, or elevations, but if you see those, the drive-through bays next to it are 9 foot wide each, plus the posts are 4, so, you know, probably, well, it doesn't give a measurement, it's weird, of how wide that, tower is. I'm trying to find one.
You did the one across the street. Do you remember how big the sign was that they approved?
The one we put on the wall that we got a deviation for, it was 4 foot.
4 foot. And there was 2 of them. There was one
Yeah.
facing 393 and there was one facing 98, but he said you all approved 4 feet.
Yeah, I thought it was either 4 or 4.5, and I remember it didn't look too small on that facade, which we were concerned it might, or that discussion was had.
I think that tower was smaller, Lee. I don't think it's similar in look, but this is larger. Because that tower, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was smaller.
All right, so just remind everybody, we have 2 issues here. One is the approval of 2 signs, and the second one is the approval of the sign deviation as presented,
So Tim, is it appropriate if we move towards something that we were talking about earlier with giving the applicant the choice? Is it appropriate to go ahead and deny or vote on, and apparently deny the deviation request for 2 signs, and then address the size deviation? Would that be the best way to approach this?
Well, I think technically you approved the deviation for the additional sign, but with a condition that they remove the other one.
Yeah.
But then that won't be,
I know.
the
Well,
deviation is to have an
that doesn't
extra
make
building.
sense.
I know,
No,
but well, I suppose you could do it on the other one. If you approve the deviation for the height, then you can put the condition on that you have to remove the other sign. So, yeah, you could do
That's
it
what
that way.
makes
Deny
sense
the
to me.
first one, approve the second one with that condition.
And before we move forward to any public comments? All right, being none, Anyone ready to make a motion?
Are we considering the request for 2 signs or an additional building sign right now?
That is correct. That is the first consideration.
I don't think there should be 2 signs.
So is that a motion?
I can make it a motion.
Please do.
I, make a motion to deny 2 signs.
I'll second.
All right, motion's made and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Move towards the deviation request.
For height, sign
Height,
height.
yes.
And Lourdes, earlier you made a suggestion of 5.5 feet. I guess trim it down a little bit. Are you still suggesting that?
Well, this is where I, again, it's like if I saw what was on the other tower that was similar to this, then you can, play the two. And, I mean, I truthfully think that it looks good as it is. I just think that, you could probably squeeze it a little bit more and make it a little bit smaller. That's why it was trimming 3 inches, which makes 6 inches in the diameter.
I would support that.
And that's
What is the total allowable square footage if they just have the one sign? Is it 54 feet?
Yes, 54.
And as Tim mentioned earlier, the Italian restaurant in one of the adjacent buildings, their signage was within the 54 square foot.
It's within what?
It was within the 54 square foot allowable size.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that Italian restaurant. I think that was in March. It was approved.
And that sign was on the tower?
I
Pretty
don't recall, actually. I'm not sure.
Let's see.
Okay. Well, I'll just make this last comment. I could support the 5.5 feet, and it seems a little nitpicky, but the reason that I'm even concerned about the size is that, there have been historically, both while I've been on this board and before, that larger signs have been approved as deviations due to the size of the facade, and the case was made that the size of the facade warranted a bigger sign or taller or whatever it happened to be. And almost every single time, if not every single, when it goes in on the ground, I'm driving by going, wow, that looks like a big sign, especially compared to all the other signs on this, or most all of the other signs on this corridor. So that's the reason that I really am careful about these.
Oh, I know that, 'cause
Yeah.
we've both talked about that.
Yeah, we've talked about that at previous meetings when we were looking at things like this. Yes, we have. So that's I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. We've seen this stuff happen, and that's why I say with renderings, to the eye right now it looks right, and I've seen the same thing happen with others. And then when it actually goes in, it can be kind of standoutish, like, wow, that's bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
Tim,
Well-
can I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
If we disapprove the size of the sign, and not have the caveat that they would have to remove the other one if this was, their choice, would they have to come back in with a new application if they chose to, place a sign, on the tower instead of above the doors? Or could we defer, for them to discuss whether they want to pursue, a different size sign, or whether they want to drop it together, or
Well,
what's the
You can approve anything.
procedure-wise?
You can approve anything up to the 6 feet, right? So they're asking for 6 feet, and that's what we advertise, but you can go anywhere between 3 and 6. So if you want to do 5.5, your motion would be to approve the height deviation from 3 feet to 5.5 feet. And then if you want to attach a condition. to
And then
that.
they would not have to come back if they chose to go that route.
Correct.
Okay. I would like for them to have the opportunity, to not have to come back before the board if, and let them make the choice of whether they keep the original approved sign or whether they, present with a new sign. I hate dragging things out. I know these issues are, a lot of time and money, and I don't want to be, wasteful of that.
I agree with that.
So I would like
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
I would like to, make sure that we give, a solution, an either or type of solution. If we're leaning towards allowing the sign on the tower, if we can come to an agreement about the size on it, I feel like that is respectful of their request and time, that then they could come back and make that choice.
Yeah.
I just, I think that's, much more reasonable.
I agree with that.
Yes, me too.
So then if, to that end, if we make a motion to approve the deviation on the condition that the height be limited, the diameter be limited to 5.5 feet, and then it's up to them. I don't even think we have to condition it further, because we've already denied the request for a second sign, so then it's up to them. They can either do this sign at the 5.5 feet, let's say, if that's the way it goes, or, and take the other sign down, or not. I think that achieves what you want, Kelly, right?
It will, yeah, I could support that. I don't want them to feel, just having to go on an extra month if they, can make that decision, and we give them the ability to make that decision without having to come back before us. So I would definitely prefer that.
Okay. Lee, would you like to make a motion?
Totally agree.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve the deviation on the condition that it's no larger than 5.5 feet in diameter, and height really is what we're talking about here. And I think that's all, right? I mean, do we need to condition it also on the other sign being taken down, Tim, or did we already accomplish that?
I think you're correct. I think we accomplished that.
Okay, so that's my motion, without that last condition of the 2 signs, or taking the other sign down.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes unanimously. All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, the Emerald Coast Emporium Amendment.
Yes, thank you. This is a less than minor development order application requesting approval for an exterior modification to remove the tower at the west end of building number 2, reduce the end cap at the east end of building number 2, and replicate this end cap in lieu of the tower at the west end of building 2, and replace a window with a double door on building number 3 for an existing shopping center on 3.95 acres with the future land use of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center mixed use. Project's located at 10859 US Highway 98 West. This was previously approved as a facelift to the shopping center. I'm not sure exactly what month. It might have been January. Well, they've come back due to budgetary constraints. They wanted to make this a change to it, so it's a less than minor to do this exterior modification. So I will answer any questions you may have, and I believe the applicant is here as well.
Oh, God. Okay, so I'm trying to make sure I understand where everything, okay, so building 1 and 2 are next to each other and both front US 98, correct?
Yes.
I'm reading the site plan accurately. And then buildings 3 and 4, which almost look like one building, am I right? I am having a hard time. Okay, here. This shows all of the buildings. I'm looking at the rendering on page 15. And it's the building elevations is what it's titled. So the rendering at the top of that page, does that show the actual how all 4 buildings will look from US 98?
Yes.
And then the tower that they are proposing to change and eliminate, is that on the, if we're looking from US 98 on the left-hand side of building 2?
Yes. If you look at, I don't know
Okay.
if we're looking at the same page, but it says Emerald Coast Emporium design elevations. So building 1, you see the tower at the end. So that's what was originally approved. So you look at building 2, so now you see the 2 ends, that's what's proposed. So there was going to be a tower at the, well, to the right. I don't know if that's east or west, but that tower is being removed and the end caps are the same on either end.
So the tower would have sort of been on the other side of the break in the building from the tower on building 1. Break between the buildings, I'm sorry.
Building 1's not changing, it's building 2. Building 2 had the same
Right.
tower on it, which is now being removed.
Just, yeah, let me look at
But it'd be
other
at
side.
the other end. It'd be at the same right end of that building as it is on building 1.
I'm just trying to orient myself so that I understand where exactly this thing is.
Is the applicant present?
Were.
Oh, okay.
Wow, they're not?
Apparently not.
All right, so here's building 2. No, it actually maybe, wait a minute. Where's the,
So from 98, as you're going west, so it's on your left-hand side, the first building is 1. So it's got a tower at the west end. And the next building is 2. It was also going to have a tower at the west end, but now they're doing the 2 end camps, as you see on the elevation for building 2. So that's the proposed change. And then on building 3, I'm not sure which drawing it is. They're just switching out a window for a double door on that building. It's on one of these plans. I'm not sure which one.
so Lourdes, this is actually an interesting illustration of your point from earlier, right? That here in this top rendering, it shows the entire center. So you get a real good feel for balance, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And they're
Yes,
keeping the towers.
I agree 100,000%.
They're keeping the towers on building 1 and in between building 3 and 4. If you see that elevation, the tower is
Yep.
in between those 2 buildings. So that's not changing, just so you know.
So guys, my first blush as a non-design professional is that this actually is even a little better balanced when you look at the entire center overall, because if the tower would have been on the east side of building 2, that would have made more sense to me. now that I'm looking at it. And I don't know if we had this rendering, because I think I remember struggling to figure out how these buildings looked all together on this site, I think. It's been a long time, or a while. But this actually looks a little more balanced than if you had a tower on the west side of building 2, to me. When you look at the site overall.
I agree. I think it looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I like the balance of the rendering. I think it's very successful to show that. I don't remember reviewing this project, so this may have been before the December meeting. But yeah, I would agree it might feel awkward with the additional tower. So I don't have any issues with this one.
Well, the last page, A203, shows where they're switching out the window for the double door, if you want to see what that looks like.
Sorry, my computer muted me out. Did you hear my question just then?
No.
Go ahead, Lee. State it again, please.
I'm so sorry, guys. My computer has gremlins for Zoom. The door they're changing out to a double window, where is that? If you can help us on the renderings. I'm not even sure it really matters. I don't know that you'll even be able to really see that from the road, or if it would matter, but just for thoroughness' sake, can you help us figure out where that would be on the rendering?
It appears to be next to the tower, between the two buildings, 3 and 4.
I don't have a problem with that at
And
all. I don't think.
A203.
It is identified as the north elevation.
That would be facing.
Yeah, I don't know that that's in between the two buildings so much as it is on the end. So I think it feels like it's the, if you're looking at the rendering, the corner that's visible to.
I believe that's correct, Kelly.
From 98.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
don't
think,
think, I don't have
I
a
feel
problem
like it's,
at all.
yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but I feel like that's the side that the rendering is demonstrating, is that,
Okay.
that elevation.
Yeah, because they're going to be putting outdoor seating there. I think you're right. That's probably.
Yeah, if you look at the site plan, the architectural site plan, they have it notated. So it is that short elevation that faces 98 at an angle. It says outdoor seating, so that's exactly where it is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what
Okay.
it is. They're putting double doors there for the outdoor seating.
All right, so they're eliminating the
Yeah,
tower and
understood.
changing it to a matching end cap on building 2, and then changing the double doors to double windows.
Well, no,
On
they're
the end of
they're
building.
taking out a window and putting in double doors.
Okay, the opposite of what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to access that outdoor patio dining area
Correct.
easily. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm good.
Okay.
If everyone else is.
Do we have any public comments? Being none? Any additional questions from the board? Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Lourdes, did you vote? Lourdes, did you vote?
Me? Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
in the affirmative?
I
Okay.
said yes.
All right, great. All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, the Summit Building Parking Addition.
Thank you. This is a major development order application requesting approval to develop 17 additional parking spaces on 2.229 acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center. It's located at 42 Business Center Drive. This is immediately west of the Summit Building. It's an addition to the Summit Building parking. Since it's only a parking lot, the only thing you're approving this evening is their landscape plan. As presented, it is in compliance, but they've been contacted by Gulf Power. Gulf Power wants to limit the type of vegetation in their easement and the overhead power lines, so they're going to switch out the canopy trees they're showing on the current plan for understory trees, which the code allows for. So with that, I'll answer any questions, and the applicant is here.
What species of
Tim,
tree?
will that be all of the,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kelly.
it's okay. I was gonna ask, on the land, so is the entire parking lot and landscape area under the easement?
Go ahead, come forward, Scott.
So it'll affect all of the trees?
This is the applicant.
Hey, this is Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering. Yes, it does affect the entire parking area. It will be the whole full 100 feet, so it will be all the trees.
Okay.
What tree species, are you switching to?
Let me get my list, hold on.
What's that?
He's getting a
I
list.
get my list, I don't remember the names.
They have a list.
I do, I think they're gonna switch.
All right.
The live oaks to fringe trees and the crepe myrtles to Japanese privet, unless you have another option you would like to see. Those are just the two that Gulf Power agreed that wouldn't grow tall enough to cause them problems, so.
Tim, is privet on our approved tree, planting list for the corridor? I would prefer something other than privet if we don't have privet on the corridor list.
Yeah, it's on the list.
I'd be happy to use
Really?
something else, yeah.
Should it not be,
So-
Kelly?
So Kelly, the applicant said that he is open to suggestions if you have something else.
Something different.
It
What
can be invasive in some places. It's not, it can be appropriate, but they can also get away from you.
What are the other options for understory trees, Tim?
Well, there's a number of options.
They should be able to fit the crepe myrtle, if they select an appropriate sized crepe myrtle, they should be able to get something, that won't reach, a height that is above what the power company wants.
Yeah, but the code says the crepes have to be a minimum of 15 feet tall.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
If they're gonna hit for, yeah, if they're gonna be used for understory trees.
Which is what they're being used
but-
for.
I feel like the power line and the power company's request overrides our plant height. So if they want to select, something that's going to be smaller, that would be, similar size to, the privet's going to be kind of shrubby. I don't have an issue with a crepe myrtle, because that's what we're really doing is just getting something that's appropriately sized that the power company's happy with.
I agree.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it being crepe. If privet is on our approved species list, I'm okay with it. It's just not my favorite.
It is on the list.
I have no problem. The fringe tree I have no problem with. I think that's fine. But,
Yeah, and as the
I think that
applicant,
they can still use crepe myrtle.
yeah, as the applicant, we don't have a problem using crepe myrtle. They'll just have to be shorter than the 15-foot requirement. So if y'all are good with that, we're good with that.
I'm good
Yeah,
with
and
that.
the landscape architect, yeah, they don't have a specific crepe myrtle selected on the plan, so, he can easily select one that would be appropriately sized, and I think that's fine. I'd prefer that to privet, from my own point of view, but if the privet's allowed, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Great.
Is any public comment? All right, being none. Any additional questions from the board, comments? Someone like to
Really,
make
the
a
only
motion?
thing we're looking at here is the landscaping, right?
Correct, yes.
Yes.
What is that in the islands? I'm just curious, really. I can't see on the,
I think there were live oaks
Three
in the
little green-
islands. Oh, there's shrubs.
Oh, saw palmetto.
oh, palmetto, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So small on my screen in the legend, I can see it. Okay.
The board like to make a motion?
Well, I'm sorry, one more question, just again, out of the interest of in the interest of thoroughness. The trees, other than the ones that front 98, it looks like there were 4 live oaks planned. So those are gonna have to change as well?
Yes, they're all gonna have to change. The whole site is within the Gulf Power easement.
And so are you changing those to fringe or crates or what? Fringe, I guess.
Scott says fringe.
I'll make a motion to approve with the change to, shorter crepe myrtle species, from the privet.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion passed unanimously. Thanks, Scott.
Can we take like a 5-minute
Certainly,
break?
yes, sir. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Yes. All right, see you, Scott. How you doing? Good, Ryan? How about you? Yeah, yes.
I'm leaving audio and video going.
Okay. All right, see you, Scott. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll do it, you bet. Glad you guys made it on this month.
Yeah,
I was going to make it last month.
We were too, yeah.
Hope we don't get tripped up
Yeah.
on the way. Hard to. text Lee, or can y'all text Lee, see if she can get back on with us? I think I haven't. Let's see. I'm calling her now. Okay. Kelly, can you unmute it for us?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right, great. We'll call the meeting back into order. Our next agenda item is number 8, the East End 5 MG tank and booster pump station. Right there.
This is a minor development order application requesting approval to construct a 5 million gallon potable water ground storage tank and booster pump station on 4 acres with a future land use of public facilities and institutional and a zoning of public facilities. Project's located on the south side of US Highway 98 east, west of Breaker Street, and east of Watersound Parkway south. This project is in compliance with the scenic corridor requirements. The applicants are here, and I will answer any questions the board may have.
Board have any questions for Tim or the
the only
applicant?
question
Go ahead.
that I had was about the landscape plan. They're showing a 100-foot buffer that is consisting of existing canopy, understory, and shrub. They've located for us any tree over 6 inches, but we don't have a good understanding of what type of existing understory or shrub material is on the site. Is there a requirement for a certain level of planting along this corridor? Or is that not required of this type of project?
Yes to the first, no to the second. I think because it's so heavily wooded, this is going to probably provide almost a 100% screen for this project. I think they're planted pines,
Yeah,
but it is heavily wooded.
I'd like the applicant to come forward and maybe explain to us the thought process behind the landscape.
Sure,
plan
thank you.
buffer.
Ryan Douglas with Regional Utilities, and Tanner's right. It is just a really forested area, very similar to the other forested areas through that entire area. We chose this site because it was bounded on both the east and the west side with wetlands as well as the south side. But we still had enough room to set the tank well off the roadway because we want to be screened just as well as, which is why we've provided the, 4 times the width of a typical buffer and moving all of our fences well outside of the, we want to be out of sight, out of mind as well. So that was, I don't know if that fully answers your questions, but it is just the same native vegetation.
It does. I was just, I just wanted to understand the character of the existing material that's going to be part of that buffer. So that did answer that question.
Thank you.
Lee, can you unmute yourself, please? Lee, can you unmute yourself? Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I'm jockeying back and forth between the documents and the in the Zoom. So am I reading correctly that there's no additional landscaping? It's just gonna be buffered by the existing mostly pines?
That is correct.
I'm trying to look for the distance between the tank and the buffer.
That's,
What's the
I've got
size
that.
of the buffer?
I've got that information. I actually thought you might ask that question. The tank itself is 325 feet off of the pavement of Highway 98, 245 feet inside the property line. So the distance between the tank edge and the landscape buffer is going to be somewhere around 140 feet, give or take a few, but quite a distance back there.
And it's a 100-foot landscape buffer, Lourdes.
That's correct.
Okay. And how tall is the tank?
Also a good question. It is 25 foot tall. It is 186 foot in diameter, but it's 25 foot tall. Again, we chose a low, wide tank because we felt like it would screen easily between, the trees and would just be able to hide easily behind all of that.
But the grade, it seems like it sits on, the grade goes up on a 1 to 5 slope. Is that what I'm looking at correctly?
It is a dome tank, so the slope varies as it reaches the peak, if you will, of the tank. Oh, pardon me. You're talking about the grade of the ground?
Yeah.
Honestly, when you're out on site, it's relatively flat, but it does pick up elevation some from the road. But thank you. Dylan just noted that we're building up the site 1.5 feet, so that is and that's just for requirements of separation.
Okay. So that means that the height would be around 26.5 feet total from the highway.
Yes, ma'am, from existing.
Yeah.
The current trees there are well over, the current screen's well over 25 feet tall, probably closer to 40 feet tall right now, but in general, you certainly could be comfortable saying that was well over 30 feet tall.
I personally, I like their approach in leaving the drive and the landscape buffer natural, especially if the tank is going to be screened. No one's even going to know what it is, and hopefully that it's there. I think if you were to landscape it, it would actually maybe even draw attention to their access and the fact that there is a tank back there. Do we have any additional questions from the board? Any public comment? Would the board like to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, Lourdes.
What is the tank going to be painted? What color?
Good question. It is, I believe the name is, it's anemic paint. I believe it's a pearl. Essentially it's white. It's the same, this is essentially the same color all of our other tanks in our system are.
I was just wondering if it could be like not a green, something that will, make it go away.
Yeah,
Camouflage it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's definitely not green. White is consistent with everything else that we have.
Just a thought.
That would be nice.
If it's so large.
Yeah, again, we need the storage volume for future development. Obviously, you know that area is growing so fast. And we chose the height based off of trying to, a couple of reasons, not just visual screening. We also need to keep the tank lower for hydraulic reasons, so it fills properly. Because all the other 5 water tanks in our system, they all feed through the same nexus, and we need hydraulically that tank to be lower, and we could go pretty deep into that conversation, but that's why we chose a lower tank, and the 5 million gallon volume, that area is, the growth is huge over there.
I totally agree with you. I have no problem with that. I'm just was wondering, and you're gonna have to, if you use white paint, you can just as easily use green paint.
Yeah.
Or is it really a hardship? I don't know. I'm just asking.
You're honestly asking a question that I haven't delved into. I don't know that I can, to be honest with you, answer that. I just know that we have been consistent with white tanks, and every tank that I've looked at, every water tank that we've gone and even looked at, they're all the same white color. Okay, Dylan just noted that Tanemic paint that we're talking about is only available in 6 colors, and they're all they're all white to grayish white, all really light in color. So that would be consistent with why all the tanks we've looked at.
That's
are that
right.
color.
Yeah.
What are the other colors besides white? You said they were available in 6 colors?
Yeah, I don't have all that with me.
I think that he said it's different shades of white
Okay.
to a grayish white.
Just think something that might mute the white a little bit would be better than one that is pure white.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. We can request it, right?
Yes, you can make a condition of approval.
I don't know that I would want to condition it. I don't know, maybe. What do you think, Lourdes?
It scares me not to be able to see it because,
Yeah, it
You know?
does. Same here, always.
yeah.
It's very heavily wooded.
It's-
I don't think
yeah.
you're gonna see that tank.
I don't think you're gonna see it either. And remind us again what is the width of the buffer? Because
Sure.
it is
The buffer
extremely
we're calling it 100 feet. It's actually a few feet over 100 feet
Yeah.
wide.
Well,
I think it's just gonna be hard to see.
the second, right? So
What's
for-
that?
We need to second the approval. There's a,
Yes, yeah, Lee made a motion to
I
approve.
did second.
the motion, right?
Yeah.
Yep, we
Yeah,
did.
Lee made the motion and I made a second.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion passed unanimously. guys.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, the Walton County TDC Visitor Center and Administration Offices.
Yes, this is a major development order application requesting approval to develop a 21,735 square foot commercial building to be used as the TDC Administrative Offices and Visitor Center on 2 acres with the future land use of mixed use and a zoning of village mixed use. Project is located at 24604 US Highway 331 South. This project is consistent or in compliance with the scenic corridor regulations. The applicants are here. I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Tim, the elevations that I have in the packet, all appear to be in black and white. Is that correct, or are the colors, black, more gray and white for the structure?
And I've got to find that particular sheet, or maybe if one of y'all can answer that.
Yeah, the applicant's here to come forward. Please state your name.
Shelton Stone with Stone Architecture. I'm the architect for the building. We sent out later today, this afternoon, colored renderings and elevations. Tim, were you able to?
Well, there was no way for.
Do we have the ability to pull those up?
No, there was no way for us to do that, but they do have the elevations
Yeah,
here.
so let's just do this a little old fashioned.
Can you hold it up to the camera?
Right.
Oh, perfect, okay.
See if that gets, let's do this.
So you can either flip the board around, because there's a camera to the rear of the podium, or you, oh, okay, that works too.
Yeah, this'll work so
Never
that
mind.
Tanner can see it. Oh, okay, we're gonna move it.
Oh,
Oh, that's great.
The glare is not that bad,
no,
Shelton.
yeah, the glare, it's not at all.
What I thought we'd do, the front elevation, and, you know, I'm sorry, we have a PDF that is available, and we can send these to you. I thought we'd start by going through the building materials first, the exterior lighting, and then the signage. So the building is all white stucco. It's a Munsell 9.5. It is literally the white out of the bag of stucco. So it's as white as you can get. The roof is a galvanized steel, a standing seam metal roof. We're all familiar with that here. There is wood on the elevation. And again, you're not going to be able to see that very well, but all the handrails, the front entry gate, the tower is framed in wood, and we intend that to be cypress, locally sourced from Bruner up on Rock Hill Road. And that cypress actually is coming out of the Choctawhatchee River, right, Cliff? So that's actually a locally sourced material. The windows are going to be a black steel, a steel window, so it allows for very thin sight lines. The lighting, we'll get to that as a separate board that we have for you. The pavers for the sidewalk, we're going to use Belgard pavers that are made in Definiak Springs. Not many people know that we actually are one of the largest paver producers in the country right here in Definiak. And we're going to use a charcoal. I'm sorry, sidewalk. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, parking lot. This is one of the pavers that we're looking at. It's just a standard 4x8 brick-sized paver. And then we'll use white paver for the striping. And then we have 6 electric vehicle parking places, and we will use a green paver to mark those spaces. Can everybody see that okay?
So Shelton, is the entire parking lot gonna be pavers or just the
Yes.
sidewalk?
No, no sidewalk. The sidewalk will not be pavers. We'll get to that in a second, but all the parking lot will be paved with pavers and striped with pavers. And then the EV
Wow.
parking places will be all green with the white stripes.
Big parking lot.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a big parking lot.
It's a lot of pavers.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a sample of the wood. So this is actually an interesting, this is the cypress. This is the sanded natural side. And then as it ages in time, it will turn this nice kind of silvery gray. And that's what we intend for the building to do. So the building will actually age very gracefully and obtain a nice kind of natural patina with essentially no maintenance. Yeah, the other elevations. What you're seeing is that is the front elevation, or the north, facing north. What I'm about to put up is the actual elevation on 331. If you recall, the building is really organized around a large arcade and a courtyard, and you begin to see that on this elevation. But the Discovery Center is now which is a 3-story open space. It's in the background, and the office and administrative and conference rooms are downstairs on the left-hand side. And then the observation tower, which includes the elevators and fire stair. But again, very simple palette of materials. It's all white stucco, black windows, cypress.
Shelton, I think that I noticed some trees in the interior courtyard.
Yes.
Will any of those be visible from this elevation from 331?
They will, in time they will, and we intend, Lee, to plant 8-inch caliper live oak trees. Day one, they're gonna start out, I believe, is at least 8-inch caliper character oaks. So yes, you will be able to see that. Of course, being the architect, I wanted you to see the building and not covered too much by trees. But yes, they'll definitely be visible from this side. And the
Nice
front
little splash of color.
elevation as well. Sorry?
I just said it would be a nice splash of color.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Any questions? I've got 2 more elevations to show. So these are the main elevations. And this is the west side elevation. This will be really obscured from 331. This is administrative offices and storage and a loading dock. And this is the back side of the Discovery Hall. And there are no windows there because there's a very large video display on that particular wall. So you're really kind of seeing the back of the building. And then this elevation is the rear of the building. It is the south elevation, and you see the back side of the tower, and the offices left and right are those windows. We also have a fire egress walkway on the back of the building, and that's what you see, those three doors. And those are panels. Those aren't gates per se, but they're kind of breaking up a wall that we have along the back of the building. Next, we'll move to lighting. So we really, on the building itself, we really have 2 types of lighting. The left-hand side is the parking lot or flood lighting, area lighting. That is an LED fixture. It is a full cutoff fixture, so it's a dark skies compliant. And you can see that in its design. So there's no light trespass going up at all. It's 100% cutoff. We are mounting that on a cypress pole, 8 feet tall. And so I've got a scale figure there for your reference. Then we have 3 copper fixtures made by Bevelo. These are actually gas lanterns, so not really as much for illumination, but for accent and effect. And depending on where these lights are located and how high they are depends on the size. So you'll see the first one is the small side. They come in 3 sizes, a 20, a 27, and a 33. The 20-inch is located on either side of doorways. The 27 is located at the main entry arch. And then the 33 is suspended from the arcade as it wraps the courtyard. And those are the really essentially two light fixtures, but the copper gas lantern is in 3 different sizes. Can you all see that okay? Do you want me to move that closer to the camera?
I'm good. How tall is that parking lot pole light?
It's 8 feet to the bottom of the post. So if you see there's a dimension line there, that's 8 feet.
Great, thank you.
And the fixture's approximately 24 inches tall. So any comments or questions on lighting?
No.
We're gonna talk about signage here in a second, but I wanna put another board up that'll talk a little bit about, we mentioned sidewalks, but we haven't talked about what the material is, but let me show you this. So the left-hand side is concrete pavers, and that's similar to what we're talking about for the parking lot. The middle photograph is actually the sidewalk at Alice Beach. So I actually, many of you, or some of you may know, I was the initial project manager at Alice Beach, and we developed this material, and it seems to be used quite a bit. But it's a white Portland cement with a lot of crushed shell. And that's a close-up of that. But if you've been to Alice Beach, you've seen it. So, and when it gets wet and is rained on, it turns a really nice kind of purple, picking up the color of all the shell. So all the sidewalks in the parking lot will be the Alice Beach sidewalk. This particular board also begins to look at signage. In the top, you see a stop sign and an accessible parking sign. We intend for those to be 3-dimensional and routed, not the, your typical metal screen printed or printed stop signs or accessible signs. The last item that we have is the building signage, and I'll put that up now.
Shelton, do you mind if I ask a question before you go into signage?
Certainly.
Can you just tell us what the thought process was behind having the front of the building orient to the north versus orienting to the east, to the front of, to the 331 frontage?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we have a very constrained site, and if you see the current site plan, we've used between the parking requirements, and I tell people, and this is really the truth, that we really designed the site and parking ingress and egress from the site was very tricky. So getting 2 RVs in. So after we designed the parking lot, there wasn't a whole lot of room left for a building. So what you see is what I had left over to really work the building into. Knowing that we wanted to use a lot of natural light, the north exposure is actually ideal, I think. So that was predominantly the major factors for it being a north-oriented building.
Okay.
The main parking is also to the north of the building. So most of the parking is on the north side. And the other reason for that is we wanted to keep the building as close to 331 as possible. So we're only single-loaded parking along 331. So if we had made that 331 elevation, the front elevation, the building would have been much further away from 331.
You-
That help?
Yes.
Okay, signage. We've had a lot of talk about signage tonight. What you have in your package that we submitted, and Tim, we meet all the signage requirements, is on the top row. So we have a building sign, and the building sign has, these are all cast bronze or maybe cast aluminum letters, dimensional letters applied to the building. Originally, we had intended the Walton County seal, and then the letters Walton County under that Tourist Development Council, and then below that Discovery Center, the title of the building, and that's what we submitted in your packet. That totaled 30.76 square feet, so well under the, 54, Tim, we have?
For a building
building.
sign, how big's the building?
It's big. Yeah.
You can have a 100 square.
So it's well under what our allowable is for that. So since we made our submission, we have talked in working with the TDC. We're actually proposing now to take the Discovery Center, the title of the building, off the building. And so we are simply requesting now to make the sign smaller. It's now 20.51 feet, and it would simply be the Walton County seal. Again, it's cast in bronze, then Walton County, and then Tourist Development Council. So that is on the very left-hand side of the board that you see right now. The top one is what we submitted, and the bottom one is what we're actually requesting. So we're actually requesting a deviation from our submittal, but we're asking for less. And I'm going to put the elevation, the front elevation up to show you where we want to put it on the building.
So the monument sign will still say Discovery Center.
Yes, it will, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
You all can still hear me. This is the location of the building sign. So the building sign is located to the very left-hand side of the courtyard wall. So if you're entering the building by car, it'll be really the first thing you'll see on the building. And we felt like we didn't need to put Discovery Center on it because the monument sign is going to have Discovery Center, and we'll get to that next. So back to our design, what we submitted that is in compliance with the requirements is on the top line. And we had 77.78 square feet of sign area, total area, 27.22 allowable, and this sign represents 24.94 square feet. So we're well under the sign requirements. The problem was with the design, we felt like, and this is a 12-foot wide monument sign. If you'll notice, the 911 address is very close to the bottom of the sign. So since our submittal, we have redesigned the sign to be smaller, but 2 feet taller and gets allows for landscaping around the base of the sign now, and gets the 911 address about 2 feet off the ground. So that is the bottom sign is now what we're requesting approval on. That now is a 10-foot sign. So we went from 77.78 to now we're 73.33 square feet of total area. That gives us an allowable sign area of 25.67, and we are now at 16.69. So we were at 24 square feet, we're now at 16 square feet. So the sign, we believe, has gotten smaller, but a little taller, and we believe it's the right size.
Shelton, where will it be on the property?
Yeah, let me show you that. So it will be on the north side of our entry into the site. And, yeah, Cliff's putting that on the board, and,
You can see it on the landscape plan.
yeah. Yeah, okay, I'll take those back. Cliff will point to the sign. Yeah.
Right. Got a nice shade.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the sign, that's actually the existing sign on the property. What we're proposing is a slightly smaller sign than that sign. None of these letters are backlit. They're all going to be, flood lighted from the ground from landscape lighting. So these are all be dimensional letters with concealed fasteners, surface mounted to the face of the sign. And the sign will match the building. It'll be white stucco.
I don't have a problem with any of it.
No. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all the revisions
Right.
are very good ones.
Yeah. Thank you. We believe it's an improvement over what we submitted, so.
Beautiful building.
Thank you, thank you. Any other questions? I'm happy to give any insight.
I think you gave a really nice presentation. It's been very thorough, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Being none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously.
All
Thank
right.
you, Shelton.
Thank you all very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our final agenda item, number 10, Otto's Carwash SoWal.
Yes, the applicant is requesting to continue this to our next meeting on July 2nd.
Okay.
Motion to continue.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Perfect. Continuance is granted till our next meeting. Lee did. Kelly,
Yeah.
I think. Nope, did I have it backwards?
I made the
That was
motion, Lee.
Florida.
Oh, Lord, a second, okay.
Lord has seconded, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Which one was it?
I just-
Motion to continue.
Oh, yes. I seconded.
Does the board have any additional business?
No?
Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
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 Nice seeing you all.
Good to see you, Lourdes. Good to see you, Kelly. Everyone, Tanner.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Tim. Yeah. Oh, there you go.